In 1974, Francis Staub turned a dormant artillery factory in Alsace into a cookware legend. Each cocotte was touched by more than 20 craftsmen over a week-long process. That story still sells Dutch ovens for more than $1,000. But since a German conglomerate quietly took control in 2008, some of those pieces no longer come from France at all. So what exactly are you paying for? Francis Staub's name carried weight long before it appeared on a price tag. In 1974, he walked into a shuttered artillery factory in Turkheim, Alsace, and set about forging something new from the bones of the old war industry. The first cocotte, a heavy, enameled cast-iron pot, emerged from that workshop, shaped by Staub's own hand and refined through conversations with chefs like Paul Bocuse. This was not mass production. Each pot spent a week moving from molten iron to finished enamel, passing through the hands of more than 20 craftsmen. The process was slow, deliberate, and anchored in the rhythms of French culinary tradition. Staub's story became inseparable from the region itself. The Alsace foundry, with its thick stone walls and legacy of skilled metalwork, gave every Dutch oven a sense of place. The company's early marketing leaned hard on this heritage: French design, French labor, French soil. The cocotte was positioned as more than a tool. It was a symbol of authenticity, a promise that what came out of the box was the same as what professional kitchens used. Michelin-starred chefs lined up to endorse it, and the Staub name began to mean something to home cooks searching for reliability and craft. Before any talk of global ownership or shifting production lines, the Staub cocotte stood as a kind of culinary artifact. Buyers weren't just purchasing cookware, they were buying into the idea of French mastery, born in a converted factory where every detail was a matter of pride. That emotional promise, embedded in the brand's earliest years, would become the foundation for everything that followed. A Staub cocotte did not arrive overnight or by accident. Each one began with raw pig iron, poured and cast in sand molds, then cooled, trimmed, and passed from station to station for a full week. More than 20 craftsmen would leave their mark on a single pot, grinding, enameling, inspecting, and repeating steps until the surface met the standard set in Turkheim. The process was slow by design, a deliberate rejection of shortcuts. Every cocotte bore the weight of French culinary tradition, and the company's own marketing leaned into this fact: not just made in France, but made by French hands, in French soil. This was not empty branding. By 2007, Staub operated 3 production sites in France and employed around 430 people. Annual sales reached 44 million euros, with nearly half of that revenue coming from exports. Michelin-starred kitchens were not just customers, but partners. Paul Bocuse's endorsement, in particular, lent the cocotte a kind of culinary seal of approval. His name appeared in both product design and public praise, reinforcing the message that Staub was the tool of serious chefs. The lid spikes, now a signature feature, came from Bocuse's own kitchen experiments. Scale alone proved Staub had moved beyond boutique status. Yet, the company's growth did not erase the sense that each piece was the result of a demanding, hands-on process. That balance, industrial output without sacrificing craft, became the brand's core promise. But even as Staub cemented its reputation as a serious French manufacturer, the pressures of global competition and the realities of scale were already testing how much of that promise could survive. In June 2008, Zwilling J.A. Henckels finalized its purchase of Group Staub, ending more than 3 decades of founder-led control. The deal was announced in a corporate press release that described Staub as a new prestige cookware brand in Zwilling's growing portfolio. Francis Staub, who had once overseen every detail from product development to marketing, lost his executive authority as the brand's strategic decisions shifted to Zwilling's headquarters in Solingen, Germany. The public face of Staub, the French heritage, the artisan story, the chef endorsements, remained unchanged in advertising. But the real power now sat with a multinational board. Zwilling's approach was not to build new brands from the ground up, but to acquire established names with deep-rooted reputations. The Staub deal was part of a wider pattern. De Meyer, the Belgian stainless steel specialist, joined the group in 2008. Miyabi, the Japanese knife maker, had come on board in 2004. Ballerini, the Italian non-stick brand, followed in 2016. Each acquisition was presented as a way to preserve tradition, while actual governance and portfolio strategy were centralized in Germany. By 2021, Zwilling's annual report listed Staub alongside 5 other heritage brands, with the group's total revenue reaching €874 million. Staub's identity as a French cookware icon persisted on packaging and in retail displays, but the levers of control, pricing, product line expansion, and supply chain decisions were now operated by a parent company whose interests spanned continents. The artisan narrative stayed visible to consumers, even as the machinery of a global conglomerate quietly took over behind the scenes. On the shelf, every Staub product carries the same logo, the red rooster, the French name, the promise of heritage. But a closer look at the fine print tells a more complicated story. The iconic enameled cast-iron cocotte, still produced in the Merville foundry, remains tied to its French roots. Its underside reads "Made in France," and buyers can trace its journey back to the same foundry process that defined the brand's early years. This line is still shaped by sand molds, hand-finished enamel, and the week-long 20-person process that built Staub's reputation for durability. Next to these, a growing range of Staub-branded ceramics, including bakeware, dinnerware, and kitchen accessories, bears a different label. Here, the wording shifts to "Designed in France, Made in China." These pieces are manufactured in Chinese factories with design specifications set in France, but production and finishing are handled overseas. The label points to China, not the foundry in northern France. The distinction is not just technical. Consumer reviews on major retail sites describe a pattern. Chipping, pinholes, and surface cracks appear more frequently on the Chinese-made ceramics than on the French cast iron. Some buyers report returning items after just a few uses, citing enamel flaking or visible flaws out of the box. Returns and complaints show up again and again in user reports. For shoppers, the Staub name no longer guarantees a single standard of origin or quality. Two pieces, side by side, can share the same shelf and price bracket, but come from entirely different realities, one forged in the north of France, the other cast and glazed in a factory thousands of miles away. The label language is the only clue, and for many, that detail gets lost beneath the weight of the brand's heritage story. A 4-quart Staub cocotte once sat on specialty store shelves for less than $100. Today, the same size lists at $369, with the 7-quart version reaching $469.99 on Zwilling's official storefront. But these high numbers rarely hold for long. Deep discounts, 30%, 40%, even 60% off, cycle through every major retailer, turning the sticker price into a kind of theater. The perpetual sale becomes the new normal, conditioning buyers to expect a deal while anchoring the brand in the luxury tier. Zwilling's public explanation points to investment in modern machinery and tighter wall thickness tolerances, claiming this justifies the jump in the manufacturer's suggested retail price. Yet the visible product, the French-made cocotte, remains outwardly unchanged from its earlier form. The price, however, has been reframed. Instead of reflecting only production costs or materials, it now draws power from inherited prestige and the psychology of the high-end market. The pattern is clear. The brand's artisan story props up a modern premium, while the discount carousel ensures that the illusion of value never quite disappears. The warranty, more than any label or chef's endorsement, reveals what a company is willing to back up once the sale is made. Staub's current policy, administered by Zwilling, covers only manufacturing defects, often for a limited window, and restricts claims to the original purchaser. Normal wear, chipping, and the kind of gradual enamel failure that can ruin a Dutch oven after years of use are excluded. In practical terms, the fine print draws a hard line between the heritage promise and the actual support buyers receive. By contrast, Lodge, the American rival, offers a lifetime warranty on its enameled cast iron, promising free repair or replacement for enamel cracks or chips, no matter the age of the piece or the owner's location. This difference is not just legal language. For cookware sold as an heirloom, after-sale protection defines whether the high price buys lasting value or just a story. The evidence points to a simple test for buyers. Look past the myth and measure the product by three things: where it is made, what the written warranty covers, and how clearly the company discloses its manufacturing. In the end, the Staub name still trades on its French legacy, but the real guarantee is thinner than many expect. Today, a Staub label may promise French legacy, but global supply chains and corporate pricing shape what ends up in your kitchen and what you pay for it. Heritage branding can outlast heritage standards. The real test isn't the story told, but the product delivered. What matters to you?